Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickes, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Reverend Stephen Drake from the Christ Memorial Community Church in Hurst. Thank you for being here today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for waking us up this morning. We thank you for the movement of our mind as well as our body. We pray for this occasion, O Lord, that you would be with these civic leaders that represent this portion of our state and our nation. They will lead with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Father, we thank you for our great nation, particularly as we are still in mind of the events of 9/11 a few days ago, representing 10 years. Father, we're praying that you would continue to make this nation strong, especially Texas, especially Fort Worth and the Tarrant County area. We're supposed to break a record today with the heat. Father, we pray that you would bless us with rain, not only in this city, but this state and this nation. Father, we do love you. We do praise you. It's in your Son, Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Reverend Drake, for being here today.
I just did a one nation. That's a Rick Carey.
Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're going to move through the agenda today. Of course, today is the day that we pass the tax rates and set the budgets. And we have several public hearings that we're going to be conducting prior to taking any action on the budget and the tax rate and also the salaries of certain elected officials. So we'll do the public hearings first, and then when it comes to our section, we'll get up and we'll walk us through the motions. Also, like to tell the court that as it relates to closed session today, we do not have any items to bring to you in closed session, so we will not be having a closed session today.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 6th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes almost unanimously.
Almost.
Unanimously.
How about
Next, we have a few proclamations and resolutions today, and we'll begin with a proclamation honoring Constitution Day 2011, and I believe Ms. Stan Crowley, Treasurer and past region of the Six Flags chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution, is present to receive that. Come on down. Let me go ahead and read that into the record. Whereas on September the 17th, 1787, the Constitution of the United States was signed by the delegates of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, and whereas in the United States our Constitution is a foundation of government, protector of liberties, and a guarantee that we are all free to shape our own destiny, and whereas our Constitution, with the Bill of Rights and other amendments, has withstood the test of time, guiding our country through times of prosperity, peace, internal conflict, and war. And whereas Constitution Day provides an opportunity for all Americans to learn about and to reflect upon the rights and privileges of citizenship and its responsibilities. And whereas September the 17th, 2011 marks the 224th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas the citizens of Tarrant County do enjoy the blessings of liberty, the guarantees of the Bill of Rights, equal protection of the law under the Constitution, and freedoms derived from it, Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim September the 17th, 2011, as Constitution Day in Tarrant County. And further, we encourage the citizens of Tarrant County to participate in ceremonies and programs commemorating this day and to fully understand the provisions, principles, and meaning of the Constitution in order to support, preserve, and defend it against encroachment. In witness whereof, we've heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 13th day of September 2011, and I move its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Let me
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the 7 Daughters of American Revolution chapters here in Fort Worth. We annually celebrate Constitution Day with a luncheon, and so far we've got 100 people coming Saturday. But I want to thank you for this gorgeous proclamation. This is about the 4th time I've been here for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a resolution.
We have a resolution that we'll be presenting later on this afternoon to North Hills Hospital for their 50th anniversary, and they'll have a ceremony this afternoon at the hospital, and I'll be there to present it, and I would move for approval of the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And Commissioner Johnson.
I have a proclamation, POWMIA Day, September 16th, will be presented at a different time. It's for ratification only. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Public hearings.
Good morning. We're requesting the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the draft Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, or CAPER, for Community Development, Home, and ESG. The purpose of today's hearing is to receive input before we submit it to HUD. We will come back to court and ask you to receive and file this report at a later date. Our activities included completed activities, 21 projects for $2,736,113. We rehabbed 37 homes for $852,497. We funded public services for Meals on Wheels for $41,000. We provided case management for 18 families in transitional housing, and we provided operational funding for 6 shelters serving 15,000 homeless individuals for $125,669. There's no action other than to receive input today.
At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing at this time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Manions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, under public hearings, item B, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to receive public input as it relates to the salaries of certain elected county and precinct officers which are contained within the county's FY12 budget. All the proper notices have been posted as it relates to this public hearing.
This time I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Well, this time is for the public hearing. I mean, we'll get into our discussion on that in just a few moments. Again, is there anyone here wishing to speak? Then I'll close the public hearing.
Your Honor, members of the court, if we could go to item C. This concerns a public hearing to receive public input as it relates to the county's fiscal year 2012 budget. All the required public notices have been published as it relates to this activity.
This time I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. Appearing none, then I will close the public hearing. And we'll now move into the administrator's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. On item number A1, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the compensation expenses and allowances for certain county and precinct officers as required by Chapter 152 of the Texas Local Government Code.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I would like to know, besides the commercial recorder, where else did we publish the announcement?
We're required to do a publication as it relates to a newspaper of general circulation countywide. We have historically published this in the commercial recorder.
Okay. What is the distribution? Who reads the commercial recorder? I mean,
well, it's a countywide publication, and I believe that every one of our sub-courthouses also has a newspaper stand with a commercial recorder there.
okay. So we basically did minimally to meet the legal requirement.
We met the legal requirements. What we did, and while we normally publish in there, is because of the expense of publishing, and we have met the statutory requirements.
Did we?
We also posted online.
Yes, we did.
I mean, you could argue that, no offense, Steve, but that the readership of the Star-Telegram has not been increasing dramatically over the last couple of years, so I'm not sure which has the higher readership at this point. But we do. What's the cost of advertising in the Star-Telegram?
About $5,000.
And in the commercial recorder?
About $150.
Do we have access to all the email addresses of all the media agencies in Dallas-Fort Worth, in Tarrant County?
Yes, we do, through our public information office.
Did we send this information to everybody as a press release like we typically do?
Commissioner, as we have done in the past, at least as long as I've been here, we have not done that. We have published in a circulation that is a countywide circulation, which meets the statutory requirements.
I would like for us to be a bit more proactive and more aggressive in terms of notifying the public about things that I personally believe are of public interest.
I would also say that our agenda is published on our website, and that agenda also calls for not only the action that we're taking now, but also the public hearing that we just held. Our agendas as it relates to the budget hearings have been published on our website and have been made available. And I know that we've had representation from the Star-Telegram here at almost all of our meetings.
I do know that.
So what are you asking us to do that we're not already doing? And is it our responsibility? I mean, we put it on our website. We post as we're required to post. Did you email all of your constituents that we were going to be doing this today?
No, I did not.
So I guess the question is, we can go out and step out and spend a lot more to try to get that information out.
We can by basically sending this information to via email, which doesn't cost us anything, to the news media agency. That's one way. There are ways that I think we can reach the public a bit more effectively. And that is my opinion. I mean, I don't see any constituent here. I thought about sending this information out to my constituents and so forth, but I did not have the time to do it, and I figure that's the job of the county administrator. And so can we reach the public a little bit more effectively about this? I believe we can. Are you telling me that we can't?
I'm just saying that at what point does it become as much their responsibility? I mean, when we post things, when we tell them that here's where you can come, when we stream everything, you know, I feel like that as I talk with other counties, we're doing quite a bit more than what a lot of other counties are doing now. Does that make it enough? I don't know. But at what point in time does the public have a responsibility to seek out that information on their own?
That's a good point. That's a very good point, and I agree with you that the public, the folks out there, they do have an equal responsibility to participate in open government as well. I agree with you wholeheartedly. My question for GK is, could we be a bit more effective in reaching our constituents and taxpayers and the public? If the answer is yes, then let's do it next year without costing additional money. That's what I'm saying. If the answer is no, then we can leave it at that.
There's a whole bigger picture here. It's not doing it again next year. It's doing it again next week. If we're going to make this an exception, these issues or whatever issues, and go and publish it in, you know, the Commercial Record, the Star Telegram, the Arlington News, I mean, you know, all of those, then we need to be consistent. And we need to do every agenda the same way. We don't need to treat this agenda any different than we treat any other agenda. We have to be consistent. We have been consistent with the Commercial Recorder?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And we've been consistent with the way we post our agendas.
I agree that we have been consistent, and I agree with Gary that whatever we do, we have to be consistent all the way across.
Right.
Okay?
Can't just be for this one issue and, you know, the second week of September or third or whatever, we're going to do this.
And we don't have to go and print our announcement on all sort of magazine costing the taxpayers a bunch of money. We don't have to do that. Okay? The county PIO has been very effective. Every time we have an achievement, we have been quite effective in getting that news out to the public about our achievements and our successes through press releases and so forth. So I believe if we take that same approach, then we can achieve a little bit more effectiveness in getting the public to be more involved in this process. But go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
I hate to disagree with my colleague, but we have had budget hearings at which all of this has been aired for the benefit of the public. The purpose of this particular notice is to comply with the law that you post these salaries that in a publication of county-wide availability. This is purely to comply with the law, not to create a news story, not to create debate and discussion. It is to comply with the law that we post these salaries. And we have done that. We have complied with the law.
Yes.
While at the same time having given people weeks to participate in the budget process had they been so inclined.
Any other discussion at this time? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we could go to item number 2. We're requesting that the Court approve the county's fiscal year 2012 budget at the highest level cost center and account group categories as follows. General Fund, $402,239,485. Road and Bridge Fund, $30,387,383. And the Debt Service Fund, $34,942,750 for a total of $467,569,618.
Move approval of the fiscal year 2012 budget as outlined by the county administrator.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have several questions here. In the court communication, the county retirement rate increases from 12.31% to 13.16%.
That's correct.
Can you tell me how does that 13.16, what is the makeup of that rate?
The retirement system that this Commissioners Court has adopted, and which is part of the Texas County and District Retirement Plan, is one where that it is a 2-to-1 match. In other words, employees put 7% of their salary in, and the county is obligated to put 14% in. Because of the health of that retirement plan, we have not had to put our 14% in. So this 13.16 is actually a smaller amount than the county is actually obligated to put in to that fund to make that fund whole. That fund currently sits at about 81% funded. The rule of thumb for very healthy retirement plans is a fund that is funded at 80%. I believe that when we had the presentation by TCDRS, that they say that our fund was above that threshold level. So what happens, Commissioner, one of the reasons why that has increased is for several reasons. First of all, we tend not to have as many people retire as we have in the past, and those individuals who are retiring simply leave their money in the system itself. So that's what causes that slight increase. But we are still below the 14% that we're mandated to place into the obligated, not mandated, but obligated to place into the retirement system.
GK?
Yes, sir.
Just a question, so everybody understands this 2-for-1 match. When you retire and you've put in $100,000,
yes, sir,
and the county has put in the equivalent of $200,000.
That's correct.
That's $300,000 total.
Yes, sir. Plus the interest that it generated.
Right. That only pertains to you accepting an annuity. Is that correct? Upon retirement?
That's correct.
That's not write me a check for $300,000 plus my interest.
In fact,
it's an annuity, which is an insurance policy.
Yes.
Which, if you die early, county, the fund wins. If you live, you win. Correct? I don't know. There's some survivor. There's some survivor benefits.
But
actually, before we do get into that, Commissioner, I do want to say that in this situation, I hope I win. If that's okay with you.
And I guess a qualifier, we don't have a group that's going around helping us with that.
I know, but I'm just saying,
what happens is that
in basic terms, you don't get a check for $300,000 plus your interest.
No, sir. In fact,
at retirement, you get an annuity.
Right. In fact, if you demand a check, what you will receive is your $100,000
plus
7%.
Exactly.
But the $200,000 plus the 7% that it has been earning over the life of the employment life of that individual stays within the system and is redistributed within Tarrant County's
exactly
funds.
It's not write me a check like some retirement funds are.
That's correct.
Ours is totally different and is not like some municipalities around here have.
And I think that one of the things to keep in mind is, we've all heard these stories about people retiring and making more than what they were making in regular. The average person who retires from our system makes about 35% of what they were making when they retired. If you look at every dollar that is paid out in retirement, I believe it's something like 11% comes from the employee, about 14% comes from the employer, and the remaining 75% comes from earnings that have accumulated over time. Again, if the employee decides to do anything other than take the annuity, all they get is their share of the money that they put in plus the interest that has accumulated on that.
Their money.
And on their money. And again, I really want to stress the fact that the average employee is going to receive approximately 35% of what they were making at the time, of what they were making when they were working. Now, part of the reason why the increase can be a number of things. It can be, we have a tendency, and we have historically in the past, gone and said to our folks who have already retired that we will give them some increase, and we have always in the past, or at least for as long as I've been on the court, made that about 80% of whatever the CPI was. Now, recently that's been an extremely low number, maybe 0.8%. But that does increase what our annual contribution amount is. So there are things that cause us for that percentage to increase. It has also increased when there are real bad years in the economy. Right. And so that's why that has gone up a little bit. But the key thing to focus in on is, one, you don't game the system by working in the last 3 years to try to increase the amount of overtime or anything else you get. That doesn't work. And, it's a situation of where we're very close to, from a standpoint of, as GK mentioned earlier, the percentage that we have in the plan is considered to be a very good percentage by the industry. And so what I think we've got to be careful not to do is to take this broad brush and paint all public plans as being bad when there are just a few that may fall into that category. And go ahead, sir.
Two things. First of all, our plan is as close to fully funded as public plans get. And secondly, our annual contribution as a county is determined by an actuarial study that is done every year that tells us, based upon, I'm not an actuary, but they consider all these birth, death, longevity, disease kinds of calculations, and they come up with a number. And that determines the amount of our contribution on an annual basis. The fact that our number is lower than the number that we are mandated as our upper limit to contribute every year is a very good thing for us.
Well, 2 years ago, 2010, the funded ratio was 87%. Now we're down to 81%. So is 87% funded better than 81% funded?
It may not be better, but I think you also have to look at what's happened to the economy over the last couple of years.
That's right. That's true.
And
That's
I don't
true.
think you'll see that ours has dropped near as much as some of the other folks have.
Right.
So you can take a particular year and point to it and say, look, the sky is falling. But the sky is not falling.
The sky is not falling. The sky is certainly not falling on Tarrant County. We do have a very good pension plan. The rate, the 13.6%, there are two components to it. Am I right? You have a normal cost rate, then you have a UAAL rate. What's a UAA? Basically we are getting charged that percentage of interest. How much is that?
You're reading it right there. Tell us how much it is.
This is an old document. I'm trying to find out what is the current rate right now.
I
Have that answer
I
with
don't have that at my fingertips, and I've been looking at files to see if I have it available. It's on my desk.
So
But what does that say right there?
it's a 5.14%, and the total rate is 12.99.
So if it went up to 13, then it's probably going to be a little bit north of 5.14.
It's about north of 5.14, right? Okay. So we do pay an interest on the unfunded liability, right?
Well, we're paying it down. What it's saying is our contribution, what it's saying is at least 5% is going to eventually pay off that unfunded liability.
The 5.14% is basically what we can do with the cash that we have. If we fund the unfunded liability, then we could basically make up for that lost in revenue gain, right?
Right, and one of the things that we have kind of talked about to do after we finish the year end this year is we've talked about looking at our cash reserves, as we're required to do by the county, by the GASB now, to define what those reserves are, to look at that and how it compares with our cash, and then to be able to make decisions if we have excess cash as to how we might spend that. We talked in terms of spending that on construction projects. We talked in terms of potentially spending a portion of that on reducing our unfunded liability. And that's one of the things that as a court we said we were going to try to do come probably around the middle of November, once we've finished our year, had a chance to kind of get all the accounts closed out, and we may be able to do that. I know Collin County, for example, they had an unfunded liability of around $35 million. They wrote a check and paid it all off. I don't think we have that kind of cash balance on hand, but again, if you will, as we enter into this discussion in November, we'll see if as a court we decide we feel like we have some excess cash.
And that's the point I'm trying to make, is we can possibly take care of our employees in two ways: pay raises and or pay down the unfunded ratio, liability. And that will also save the county some money as well, like Collin County has done. We have not fully analyzed the long-term impact of increasing our operational recurring cost. We have not. Since 2006, we have given 4 pay raises, and we just done so without taking the time to look at it from a managerial standpoint.
Well, you're speaking for yourself, I assume.
Yes, sir, but we have
Because I don't think
talked
you've
about
been
it.
on this court to determine whether or not, as a court, we've sat down and looked at it.
On this one, we haven't. On this pay raise, we haven't.
Well, how do you determine that? I mean, we said and we talked about it during our budget hearings. We said and we discussed the fact that from an operational standpoint, we had revenues over expenses that on an ongoing basis would allow us to be able to give an increase and not be dipping into cash reserves to do that. And so as a court, we decided that since we did operationally, and again, that goes back to the fact that we have elected officials and department heads who are constantly looking at the way they spend their budgets and the dollars they spend and the revenues they bring in, and that operationally we are in a sound condition to be able to give an increase and not be creating a situation where our expenses exceed our revenues. And from my way of speaking, that's what managerially you look at. You're not trying to do something or create something that will, in the long term, put you in a bad situation or in a situation where your operational revenues are exceeded by your operational expenses. We talked about that. We made the decision, and we looked after looking at that that was not the case, and that we felt like as a result of that and due to the fact that we've got, I think, fewer employees in almost every department than what our counterparts have. We have the lowest combined tax rate when you look at the hospital district in the county. We have the lowest combined tax rate of any of the large counties in this state. I think all of that is attributed to the fact that our employees work very hard at making sure that they take the taxpayer dollars that they've given and very efficiently and effectively work with that. And they don't go out and hire people just for the sake of hiring people. So, for one, I believe that managerially we have fulfilled our responsibility and that we didn't just decide to give this 3% increase without giving any thought to where we were.
The fact that we voted on August 15th to give a one-time performance payment, and then on August 30th, we gave a pay raise. my personal opinion, and I do respect your comment, Judge, based on my experience thus far on this court, which is very limited, I personally think that we could have taken the time to analyze various aspects of Tarrant County financial conditions and weighing the pros and cons of increasing the recurring operational cost of Tarrant County. If those conversations took place, I wasn't a part of it. I didn't know about it completely.
Conversations took place right up here. There haven't been any conversations taking place anywhere else. What other information would you have liked to have discussed and looked at that we didn't have available and that we didn't look at?
I would like for us to look at, one of the things I brought out was the potential of us working out a proactive plan in paying down the unfunded liability. Okay? We also have about, the unfunded liability is how much, $130-something million?
On our retirement?
On our retirement, on our pension plan.
You know, I don't have that done. We can get you that information.
So I have the, this is the comprehensive annual report. It's a little bit over September 30th, 2010, and it shows we have about $131 million in unfunded mandates. And then we also have $229 million in what they call the other post-employment benefits plan, which is the health care and so forth for the retirees and so forth.
That's correct.
Okay. Those unfunded mandates we never talked about that until I spent a lot of time talking to various people in the county to come up with this information. The point I'm saying is this, okay?
Commissioner, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let me say this. Whenever you say that you may not have engaged in those conversations, those unfunded liabilities as it relates to health insurance, several things. First of all, and the other members of the court can attest to this, every year that we talk about health-related costs, those discussions are held here in Commissioner's Court. We talk about the unfunded liabilities as it relates to that in our PEBC meetings. The aspect of unfunded liability as it relates to health insurance, first of all, I know that there are discussions that are going on. We're going to hear some of those discussions today when we get to the HR department, whenever we talk about what we're going to charge our employees and what this county is going to pay for as it relates to health-related benefits. The big thing to realize about health-related benefits as it relates to a county versus a municipality is that any Tuesday, if it's properly agendized, this Commissioner's Court can lower that amount significantly simply by eliminating some of the benefits that are available to retirees. Once you're a retiree, that doesn't mean that you get to retire that you receive your health benefits at the moment that it was. The statutes are very, very clear on that. So I know, and we're talking now, and I know we're going to have discussions about it, about health retirement accounts, health savings accounts, ways to drive that number down even more. To say that this court has not looked at this is not a correct statement, sir.
And let me make another statement with regards to the health insurance part of it.
Okay.
When GASB came out and required us to put that in place about, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago, several folks from the county, including myself, went down and testified about whether or not we felt like it was an appropriate liability to put on the books. We are being forced basically by the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, to put that liability on the books. My argument, and the argument of several others, was the fact that the 5 of us up here determine what that liability will be. And we can determine that on any given Tuesday. Because we have historically agreed to certain benefits, GASB has said you got to put the liability on the books. And we argued long and hard that that was not a correct liability. And the reason it's on that books is not because we believe we have that liability. It's because the Governmental Accounting Standards Board has gone and created a rule that says it is a liability. And I still, to this day, do not believe that that's a liability that we should have on our books.
Do you think that we can have a proactive plan to fully fund or reduce unfunded liability and therefore take care of the employees on the back end and also
Well, I think we're taking care of the employees on both the front end and the back end, but I think the salaries and the increases that we've given them are just as critical of those folks who are struggling right now to make it as is what they're going to get when they retire in 15, 20, 25, or 30 years. And I don't think you can look at one and give it more priority than you can look at the other. I think what we try to do is look at the retirement and to look at the health insurance and try to be as comparable with not only other public entities, but also with the private sector to some extent, as we possibly can be. We're required by law to do the things for the retirement. You know, while you're looking at a $220-something million unfunded liability in health insurance, again, which I don't necessarily agree that we have, is I understand the state's unfunded liability in that situation is about $55 billion. And again, it's a matter that it could change with the stroke of a pen or with the vote of a motion, but we're still required to put that in there. We're looking at things. We have created matrices for health benefits. We're looking next year at HRAs, at HSAs for the employee benefit, for the retiree plans as well as the employee benefit plans. So we are actively on an ongoing basis doing what we can to reduce that cost or at least to try to maintain some levelness to it. Unfortunately, health care is an area that no one has seemed to have been able to get their hands around.
So certainly there are areas of Tarrant County Financial that have not been, at least from my standpoint, fully explored. We have given...
We'll be glad to explore them with you.
We have given 4 pay raises since 2006.
We've not laid off a single employee.
That's good.
We've not raised the tax rate. We've done that at a time when in 1 year at least, where our property values went down. So, yes, we have given increases. But we've given increases, I think, based upon the fact that our employees have worked and continue to work very hard to make sure that they're effectively and efficiently using the tax dollars that our citizens are paying.
Well, Judge, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on
Well, that's fine, but you have used words like "we," implying that we have not been responsible in our look at this budget. And I don't take that lightly. We have. If you need additional questions, or if you want to look at things additionally, then I'll be glad, or I'm sure anybody in the county will be glad to sit down with you and talk about that. But I don't appreciate you coming up and saying that we have not done and fulfilled our responsibility.
Having reached the point of agreeing to disagree, we have a motion and a second on the floor. I'd like to call the question on the motion.
Does anyone else? That'll be fine. Please vote. Motion passes 4-1.
Members of the court, we can go to item number 3. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County government's tax rate for tax year 2011 as follows. Maintenance and operation, .237071. Debt service or interest and sinking, .026929. For a total tax rate for tax year 2011 would be .264 per $100 valuation. And I might also say that this is the same tax rate as we had last year and the year before.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now, we can turn to the hospital district. On item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve Tarrant County Hospital District's fiscal year 2012 budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Go to item number 5. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County Hospital District's tax rate for tax year 2011 as follows. Maintenance and operations, .226175. Interest and sinking, .001722, for a total tax rate for tax year 2011 at .227897 per $100 valuation. This is the same tax rate as the current tax rate.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now, we can go to the Emergency Services District, number 1, fiscal year budget and tax rate. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve Emergency Services District number 1, fiscal year budget and tax rate of .064 per $100 valuation for tax year 2011, and the overall budget for fiscal year 2012 is $4,513,415. This is the same tax rate as we currently have on this particular district.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Randy, thank you for saving Tarrant County. I understand you put out some pretty big fires up south. Appreciate it.
Members of the Court, if we could go to item number 7 under the Administrator's section. We're requesting that the Court approve a local initiative project proposal for an emissions enforcement task force to be submitted to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, Air Check Texas program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. GK, I know the sheriff is moving forward with this program. I think over a 2-year period, and there are about $1.3 million
Yes.
in this program.
Yes, there is.
Is he going to be able to spend all of this money over that period of time? Because we had some other, if there are monies and funds left over, then there's an opportunity to possibly swap some of those funds with Dallas County in order to be able to do some transportation infrastructure projects.
Let us check on that. If we believe that there's some funds that will still remain, we'll bring that to your attention immediately.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Just a comment on that particular item. We did interview a candidate for the task force commander, and I believe that that individual is going to be coming to work for the Sheriff's Department within 30 days.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Wright.
We have some segregation recovery checks here for the court to receive and authorize the auditor to cash. They're in the amounts of $346.41, $291.30, and $100. We're requesting their approval.
Move to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning. We have one additional item for the court. It's item 2. We're asking the court to approve plan choices, service provider selections, and contribution rates for funding, employee, and retiree health care benefits in plan year 2012. So this is that time of the year that we come to the court and go over a few things with you and try to get some agreement on what our benefits and rates will be for 2012 in this case. So if you can turn with me, the page right past your communique is Exhibit A, and that's not what's showing on the overhead, but Exhibit A, in Exhibit A we discussed proposed plan changes for next year, and you'll see that there are 2 pages, 1.5 pages of proposed plan changes. The first section are proposed changes to our medical plans for next year. Item 1, we are recommending that we increase our emergency room copay from $100 to $150. This would apply to both the EPO and the PPO plan. This recommendation is being made because United Healthcare, the other plans that it administers, they typically are seeing an emergency room copay of between $150 and $200. So this would bring, this change, if agreed to, would bring our plan more in line with some of our peer plans. One important note is that the emergency room copay is waived if there's an actual admission into the hospital. So that's an important point. In item 2, we're proposing an increase in our in-network PPO deductible to $500 per individual, $1,000 per family. Where we are today, it's $250 per individual, $500 per family. That has been in place for 10 years. So we would recommend that change again effective 1/1. A couple of things to note, just so that we're all clear about deductibles. With these plans, the EPO and the PPO plan, many of our services are covered by copay. So deductibles oftentimes never come into play. So our office visit to primary care physicians, to specialists, those are copays. So there are no deductibles that are charged for those services. We've talked about the emergency room copay. There's a copay for that. And then all of our pharmacy benefits are copays. So again, we are talking here about deductibles.
And that applies only to hospital?
On the PPO plan, yes, sir, it would be for hospital stays. Other services where this would be applicable would be skilled nursing care, home health care, those kinds of services. So again, we'd be proposing that for 1/1 of 12. Item 3, the last item that we have under that section is that we would propose to increase the out-of-pocket maximums on both the EPO and the PPO plans as described in your communique. We would propose on the EPO plan to change the out-of-pocket max to $3,500. From $1,750 to $2,000 per individual, and from $3,500 to $4,000 for the family. On the PPO plan, from $2,700 to $3,000 for the individual, and from $5,500 to $6,000 on the family. And these out-of-pocket copay or out-of-pocket maximums. These out-of-pocket maximums, once they are met, then the plan pays 100% of the cost.
Explain how those out-of-pocket.
Those would be, Commissioner, those would be your copays. So, for example, to go back to the discussion about the hospital stay on the PPO.
Wait a minute. I don't think it includes the copays.
Co-insurance, I'm sorry. Co-insurance, you're correct. It does not include copays. So to go back to the example of the PPO plan, I think I mentioned earlier that we have deductibles. We have deductibles under the PPO plan. So if you're on the PPO plan and you have a hospital stay, then today you pay a $250 deductible, and then the plan pays 80% and you pay 20%. Okay? So the 80%, actually the plan pays 80%, the 20% that you're responsible for, you get credit for that towards your out-of-pocket maximum. And so when that 20% adds up to $2,000, which is what we're proposing, then that's all that you pay. And the plan would pay it 100%.
I got it.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So those are the medical plan changes that we're proposing for 2012. The balance of your handout, there are some changes that are being proposed that we're pretty excited about. The first one at the bottom of the first page involves some changes to the life insurance program. Optional life coverage, we are proposing that the cap that's in place currently of $200,000 be increased to $400,000. A couple of points about optional life. Optional life is 100% funded by employees. This is not anything that's paid for by the county. There is basic term life coverage that the county does pay for on behalf of every employee. It's a minimum of $20,000, and I believe it's capped at $50,000. So again, this optional term life is an addition, and it's employee paid. So for those of us who are capped at $200,000, and I'm in that group, then this would give me the ability, if I want to, if I elect to purchase up to $400,000 of additional coverage. without evidence of insurability if you currently are capped at the $200,000. There's no evidence of insurability. No one's going to ask you health care questions. If you want it, it's yours. Okay? So that's a pretty exciting change that we're really excited about. If you flip over to the second page, another benefit that we're excited about is that we're going to be offering optional term life coverage to spouses of employees. We currently do not have that in place. Now, this benefit is going to be available to those employees who have optional term life themselves. If they have the optional term life, then their spouse, then they can take out optional term life on their spouse. The increments that are going to be available will be, or the amounts that are going to be available will be $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, $75,000, or $100,000. Now, the amount that the employee can take out on their spouse will be capped at 50% of what the employee has in place. So there will be a cap there. Coverages up to $25,000 are not going to be subject to any medical underwriting, no evidence of insurability. Anything over $25,000 will require evidence of insurability. And then the final item, item 3, I'm really excited about this one. This is a portability feature that we've not had in place. And what this will allow employees to do, employees who leave today, employees who leave county service or retire from county service, if they have optional life insurance that they're paying for today, if they want to, they can take that with them, but they convert it into an individual policy, which means that it's expensive because the rates that we all have in place now are group rates. So if you take it today, it's called conversion, and it becomes an individual policy, and it's very expensive. And in many cases, it's cost prohibitive. Employees can't afford it. So what this portability feature will do is it will allow employees and retirees who leave county service to actually take the coverage that they have in place currently at group rates. So that's a really important feature that we're really excited about. And so if there are no other questions, then we would ask the court's approval of these proposed plan changes, and these changes are recommended by our PEBC board.
I move approval of the plan changes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes
And
unanimously.
again, these changes are effective 1/1/12. Okay, so what you have there for the audience to see, what we have for the audience to see is your next exhibit, and that's Exhibit B1. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly because we have several pages of these. Let me just explain really quickly what you're looking at. On the left side, far left column, you see the benefits described. The middle column, you see 2011 rates, current rates. 2012, of course, will be rates in effect for next year. So as you sort of do the comparison, you can see things start off well. We're not looking at any increases for our dental DMO plan for next year, so that's good news. No increases for plan administration for our other plan, which we'll talk about in a moment, which is the PEBC dental plan. The administrative costs stay the same, $256 and $256. Our vision plan, which is item 3, there are no proposed rate increases for 2012. It's an excellent plan, I might add. Me and all of my family members have used it. Item number 4, we've outlined there for you. Let me scroll down. So beginning with item number 4, we've laid out our administrative costs for our EPO and PPO plan. And you can sort of see there near the end of item 4, the total per employee per month cost to administer our program. EPO and PPO programs are $31.95. And again, those are the same rates, 2011 and 2012. Disease management, same rates, $1.01 per employee per month. Where you see your first change will be item 5, and that's our stop-loss coverage. And if the court recalls, stop-loss coverage is in place so that when we have really, really large claims, and unfortunately we've had a few of those over the past couple of years, because we are self-funded, that means that we, Tarrant County, pays for claims. And then once we get to the stop-loss deductible, or stop-loss limit of $500,000, that's what we have in place currently, then this plan, the stop-loss coverage, then comes into effect, and in effect will pay claims over $500,000. You can see for 2012, we do have an increase from 1804, and again, that's a PEPM rate, from 1804 to 2101, and that's about a 16% increase. As I mentioned, we have seen some pretty significant claims, and so we were anticipating that increase, and to be perfectly honest, we're anticipating a much greater increase, and so that did not happen. So
I'll tell you, we have been in these people's pockets for the last 8 to 10 years. I think every year they try to get back into ours, and unfortunately, we've had some major claims that have allowed us to continue to get into their pockets. I think they've got us this year, but I thought they had us last year.
I did too, but I don't know. We'll see if our luck holds out for 2013.
Quite honestly, I'd almost hope that they finally get in our pockets, because when they don't, that means someone's
going
had a
well.
pretty tragic event.
So we'll see. Let's see. And then the next few items, again, we're not looking at a change for item 6, which is the fee that we pay for our pharmacy program. Good news, item 7, our employee assistance program. Our rates for 2012 are actually down 18%, so that's good news. I'm going to scroll here. So it looks like we're good in terms of our rates, all the way down to item number 11. Item 11, we have some information there for you on our group term life insurance, which I've talked about just briefly. Again, good news, our basic life rates, and again, that's the coverage that the county provides for all employees, will actually be down 20%.
It almost makes me wish I was 60 years old.
Well, not me, but okay.
You'll get there.
Maybe.
Not me.
We're close to it. Now, let me ask this question, so I'll be sure I understand that, and I will use my category, that 55 to 59 range. So what we're saying is this year, where the maximum was $200,000, if I had chosen to take that maximum, I would have paid 54 cents per
$1,000.
$1,000, and next year I'll pay 49. And if I decide to add my spouse, then whichever, I'm not going to tell her age, whichever one of these categories she happens to fall into, I would be paying based upon that.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. And the optional rates are down 10%. So we saw reductions across the board on the optional life. So that was great news. If we'll go over to the next exhibit, I'm just going to try to point out where we have differences. In item 12, we address what we pay currently for our flex accounts, those administrative rates. It looks like we've gone down just a little bit. We're going to be paying a little bit less for our monthly admin fee. We're currently at $295. We're going to be going to $265 for our qualifying COBRA qualifying letters.
Skipped right over that credit card, didn't you?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, that was not intentional, but it was probably a good thing. Thanks, Judge. Is JK still here?
Yes.
Okay. And then, again, the COBRA qualifying event letter, we're going to be paying $16 per letter for that. Okay. If there are any questions, please stop me. The item number 13, let me back up a little bit. Court wants to have discussion about this. Item number 13, we have laid out for you what contributions the county makes currently to employee flex accounts. And again, these amounts we've had in place for some time. We're not proposing any changes for next year unless the court wants to have some discussion about that. Currently, employees who participate in a medical plan, for every employee who participates in a medical plan, then the county puts into their account $240.24 for the year. Those people who actually elect to opt out of medical coverage, like myself, I'm covered on my husband's plan, then the county provides an additional $1,200 per year for a total of $1,440.40 per year. So those are the amounts that are in place currently. That's what we're proposing for 2012. What the court is aware, and we've had these discussions during our board meetings, is that under health care reform in 2013, there will be mandates that those flexible spending accounts, that employees will not be allowed to, in effect, sock away more than $2,500. And that will include any contributions that are made by the county on the employee's behalf. So, as we move forward, we need to think about that. Currently, for example, just to give you a point of comparison, employees can, in addition to the money that's contributed by the county for their medical reimbursement accounts today, can actually put in additional $5,000. So we have some employees, and I don't know if we have numbers, but we have some employees who on an annual basis sock away. If they're in an opt-out, for example, they could have $5,000 plus the $1,440. Okay, so they could have over $6,000 that they have set aside in these health care spending accounts.
So that's going to represent a pretty significant tax increase.
That's going to be a pretty significant adjustment if that remains in place for 2013. So that's just really sort of a heads up. Any questions about that?
Just a clarification. To me, socking it away means saving it, and you'll be able to pull it out.
Probably not the best choice of words.
In actuality, what happens is that this money is for covered expenses only, and if you don't use it by the end of the plan year, you lose it.
That's correct. You're right. That was not the best choice of words. You've described it quite well. And one of the changes we did make, Commissioner, a year or so ago, employees now have, the plan year begins in January and then ends the last day of December. And so employees, back when these were first created, that was the time period that you could incur services, and then you had some time into the next plan year to file claims. There was a change that was made a year, 2, 3 ago, I can't recall.
2009.
Thank you, 2009. So that you can actually incur services through the end of March 15th, middle part of March, and then you have some additional time then to file your claim. So that has been expanded some, and I think that that's really helped employees, but I appreciate you pointing that out. So those are flex accounts. Any additional questions or comments? The last item that we have, I believe, on this exhibit, here we've just, we're showing you with our retirees, and these are our post-65 retiree rates. Again, you can see what the current rates are, and then you can see what proposed rates are. And these are total rates. These are not reflective of what retirees pay, and we'll get into that, but these are total rates, and we'll have some discussion about how much of that the retiree pays and how much the county pays. But what you should know is that we're looking at reductions in some of these categories and increases in others. With our first plan, the Advantage Plan, which is what we call sort of our senior HMO plan, we're looking at a 35% reduction in premiums. That is primarily due to changes made under health care reform that affect Medicare Part D. So in effect, our plans are being subsidized.
And that's the drug portion.
And that's the drug portion.
And in the past, you may or may not remember hearing the term donut hole.
Oh, yes.
Well, this, in effect, they did some stuff that, in effect, I think cured that, and that's why you see this premium going down from where it was the previous year.
So that first category, we're looking at a 35% reduction. The second category, which is our senior supplement plan, and again, we'll talk about that in more detail, those rates are down 10.3%. That's with the drug plan. Without the drug plan, It's up about 5%. And then the rates that you see at the very bottom, those are current and proposed rates that retirees pay when they have dependents who are not Medicare eligible. So we offer, Commissioner Wynn, our retirees who have dependents, a spouse, children, who are not Medicare eligible, we've designed a plan, this PPO plan, that these dependents can be covered under. And again, we'll have some discussion in a minute about what the cost share should be. Okay? So those, again, are proposed rate changes for 2012 to be effective 1/1/2012. And we'd ask the court's approval.
Move approval.
Second. I have a motion, a second. Is there a discussion?
Let me ask you one quick question. The healthcare reform has a component in which the children can stay on their parents' plan until they're 26 years old?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
And
Has
that's,
that been reflected?
yes, sir, that's in place currently in our plan.
Okay, it is already, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We'll move through this one fairly quickly. This Exhibit B2 shows the proposed rates for the county's dental plan that I made mention of earlier. You'll see rates for all 4 tiers. These rates represent a 29.5% increase over rates in 2011. And these are the premiums that our consultants believe hopefully will cover claims for that plan. And yes, thank you, Joyce, that's employee paid. The county does not contribute toward dental coverage. And we would ask the court's approval of those rates unless you have questions. Effective 1/1/12.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Exhibit C1. This one's a little bit more involved. Here's where the real fun starts. Okay, so this first exhibit, but you can't see all of it, at least everybody in the audience can't. We have this divided into a couple of groups. We have employee medical at the very top, and I'll go through the columns in just one moment. We have dental in the center, and we have vision coverage on the bottom. So, you can't really see this very well up there, but the far left column, it's yellow. That column represents proposed rate increases for the various categories that we'll go through. And again, these increases, if approved by court, will be effective 1/1/12. Before we get into the individual plans, I want to remind the court that employees have not had premium increases for the past 2 years. So we have kept rates constant for the past 2 years. We are proposing what we believe are moderate increases for next year. So the employee contribution, if you can follow that column, it's 2 to the right of the yellow column. Those represent monthly rates for next year. You see there are 4 tiers: employee only, employee spouse, employee children, employee family. Again, those are monthly rates. So the $353, for example, for family coverage, that represents a $24 a month increase over current rates. You can see the employer contribution. So clearly the employer assumes much of the cost. And then the total accrual, those are the rates that Towers Watson, our benefits consultant, recommends that we use to fund claims.
On the employee contribution, even though those are monthly rates, they are taken out of each paycheck. So it's actually a, 26?
There are 2 deductions that are made, so the premium is split in half. Obviously, those months where we're lucky enough to have a third check, then there's nothing that would come out of that check. But they are split and they are taken half at a time.
Half per paycheck.
Yes, sir. And then and please stop me if you have questions, then you see the PPO rates. Again, I won't describe each column. You'll see the proposed monthly rate increases, again, left column in yellow. Actually, they're priced exactly the same, EPO and PPO. The retiree and medical dental, and again, you see no employer contribution because the employer makes the contribution. So you'll see the monthly, the first plan, again, is the county, what we call the dental, the PEBC dental plan. You'll see the rates for it with the increases to the left. The second dental plan that we have is what we call a dental HMO. You'll see the rates for it, and there are no increases proposed for that plan. And then vision, we've discussed that already. There are no proposed rate increases for next year. And one additional thing that I did make note of is that the court should be aware, I was talking earlier about the accrual column, and those rates are up 19% over last year. And you all were having some conversation earlier about healthcare costs. And Commissioner Wynn, we have seen those costs, like every other employer, increase year over year. And for 2012, those rates are up, again, 19%. So do you have any questions about proposed rates on Exhibit C1?
And we're still using Health Smart for our vision, employee and retiree vision?
It's VSP.
The billing goes through Health Smart, but the company is VSP. It's just the billing goes through Health Smart.
So the provider has not changed. And again, it's an excellent plan. If any of you have used it, I have. So if you don't have additional questions, then we would ask the court's approval of the rates reflected in Exhibit C1, again, effective 1/1/12.
Again, I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. We're at C2, Exhibit C2. Here, we're going to have some discussion about our pre-65 retirees. These are what we call our early retirees, those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to retire before we reach 65. You see their plan choices and rates represented here. As the judge mentioned, with this group, we've had in place, Commissioner Wynn, what we call a matrix. And what this matrix does, it allows the county some flexibility in terms of how much we charge retirees. So the county's philosophy has been, and I'm trying to scroll up, but it's not working. Jim, help. Thank you. The county's philosophy for the past several years since we adopted this matrix is that we would like to contribute at a greater degree for employees who have served the county longer before they retire. And so what you see here is our attempt to try to, again, determine how much the retiree pays, how much the employer pays, and again, try to take into account service that's been provided. So if you look at the very top, again, still the column on the left represents monthly rate increases. That hasn't changed. The retiree contribution, you'll see EPO and PPO. That first category that you see there, if you look at the very top, it says retiree medical, EPO, PPO, under 10 years of service. So we do not subsidize insurance costs, premiums, for those individuals, whether they're under 65 or over 65, who've not given at least 10 years of service to the county. So
there would be a rate increase in that. We don't show a rate increase in that column, but there is a rate increase, pretty significant.
yes. But there's no census. So that's that first category. Those are individuals with less than 10 years of service. The next group are retirees with 10 to 14 years of service. And again, you can see the proposed rates for next year. You can see what the county is contributing.
Okay, I want to stop you for just a second, and I want to make a general comment here. Give me the rate increases for that. Let's go back up to that first category for a second that you're seeing there, where it says zero increase. In effect, again, last year, because of the stimulus, or because of a rule that was passed passed there, we could not pass along any increases to our retirees and be eligible for a
So reimbursement?
reimbursement from the federal government. Our approximate reimbursement as a result of not passing on that increase was, now we haven't got the money in the bank yet, but we've been told that we're going to get about between $900 and $1 million. I'm assuming that the auditor's going to pop up over there so I can see her.
That's right.
Or Ron's going to pop up over there if I make the wrong numbers. The increases from, in that first category, let's just go with the EPO increase from, for retiree only, for that number. And the number is?
You can bring it to me, Joyce. I'll take a look
I
at it.
forgot to bring that sheet with me. If Natalie wants to go and get that off my desk and bring it to me, she can. It's under the monitors on the right-hand side.
Yeah, for the,
I'm assuming she's listening, so.
the retiree, we may have to do the math here, but the retiree rate in 2011 for that top category was $743.28. So you take the $743.28 and subtract it from, like on the EPO.
$1,284.
Right. And so that, had I entered rate increases, and honestly, the only reason I didn't is because we didn't have census there, is that would be the hit.
It would have been a $541 increase.
Right.
Now, remember, give me when we set this matrix up several years ago, we were looking at it in terms of, again, going back to what we have done in the past, is we've said that when we first came in and looked at this, everybody was getting the same reimbursement from the county, or the county was picking up the same percentage regardless of whether you'd been with us 1 year or whether you'd been with us 30 years.
Right.
And we said that wasn't fair. And so we put a matrix in place that said if you were with us under 10 years, we were not going to, see, she's listening, we were not going to reimburse any portion of that premium. We originally said that if you had been with us from 10 to 14 years, you were going to have to pay 75%, the county would pay 25%. If you had been with us 15 to 19, it was going to be 55 reimbursed by, or you were going to pay 55 and the county would reimburse 45. 20 to 24 was 40% by the employees, 60% by the county. In 25 plus years, the retiree would pay 20%, the county would pick up 80%.
Correct.
As we mentioned earlier, on that very first one, very top, retiree only, because we didn't increase, a couple things, because we did not increase anything last year, and just because of the growth and the cost of health care, that individual's premium will, that $1,284 represents a $541 per month increase. So that explains why we have nobody in that particular category. Because if they were in that category as a retiree only, they would be paying a little over, they'd be paying close to probably in excess of $15,000 a year for their health care. As we move down into the next category that you see listed here under 2, retiring medical 10 to 14 years, you see an increase to $641 for the EPO plan. Last year, that amount was $557, and so that represents an increase, but I don't think it's the same increase you've got.
Well, we increased the 2011 rate by 15%. So in 2011, that category, the rate was $557.46. In 2012, it goes to $641.
Okay, so that's about the $83.
Yeah. So we passed on a 15% rate increase on
Had
those.
we maintained the matrix,
No.
Yes, Pat, no,
Just a
no,
second.
let him finish.
Had we maintained the matrix as was originally set, that premium, instead of being $641, would have been $963, or a $406 per month increase. So part of what the court needs to understand when we're asked to approve this is that we are breaking from our matrix and setting new percentages that we can either, one, attempt to get back to at a later time, or two, maintain for the future. But that means that we will be taking on a larger share of that retiree cost. And so, as certainly based upon the discussions that we had earlier, I wanted to make sure that as we discuss this particular group of employees, that there was no misunderstanding by anyone that we were breaking from the matrix that we have previously adopted and that we've been carrying now for probably
2005.
Since 2005. So we've been doing this for the last, well, I'll say 5 years, because in 2011 we did not.
We couldn't do it.
We couldn't do it in order to be able to be eligible for that between $9 and $1 million from the federal government.
And that program's supposed to continue into 2012, but we can increase retiree rates.
So I would like for our other two court members to be back when we discuss that, so we will wait until they come back.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce.
Tina, just a question on the overall average, maybe we'll call it the average employee. When you look at the increases in co-pays and raising the deductible, and then just the monthly increase, it looks, if my math is anywhere near correct, but it looks like the average employee, his health care insurance is going to, if he's with a family, spouse and family, it's going to go up about anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 a year.
Which one are you talking about, this particular schedule right here?
Well, on the regular employees, not the retirees.
Well, with the actives, Commissioner Fickus, of course, we discussed earlier what those
I'm
monthly.
talking dental and medical.
Yes, sir. So those, and I haven't put pen to paper, so I can't tell you what that total is, but again, it depends, obviously, on what plan you select, what coverage tier you have, and so you assume family coverage at each.
What I came up with is your, I guess the PPO would be maybe around $240, $50. It's $24 a month, so that's about $280, $85 a year. The dental is something similar. Then when you
The dental only went up about $7.
well,
Well, but one of them didn't go out.
one of them
For family?
One didn't go out.
yeah,
No,
family, it went up
the
substantially.
dental, the PEBC dental
And then
plan,
the copay and the deductible
Well,
for
the-
family.
the co-pays haven't, well, we did talk about the emergency room.
300.
Well, those are deductibles.
Those are deductibles.
Out of
Yes,
pocket.
Okay,
yes, sir. And the only copay that we talked about changing is the emergency room copay.
that's
But, yes, sir, but the copays for office visits with your primary care specialist, with your, or primary care doc, with your specialist, those, we're not proposing any changes for those.
okay, so it's probably about 1,000 then if you, unless you have to go to the emergency room. Okay.
And if you're admitted, that's credited
That's waived, that's
toward your
correct.
hospital fee.
Yes, sir. So I think we are, again, considering what we proposed here for our pre-65 retirees, and again, your monthly rate increases are there in your left column. And if there are no other questions, we would recommend these increases as outlined effective 1/1 of 2012.
I do have one other question. And What's the average salary for our employees in Tarrant County?
Do we know that? I don't know that. We can get that.
The low 40s?
If I had to guesstimate, I would guess around 40,000.
Okay.
40, maybe low 40s. But we can certainly get that, Commissioner Fickus.
So if they're paying $1,000 extra dollars, what is that, 2.5%? 2%?
It's going to be close. What'd you say the average was?
I think it's probably in the low 40s, but we can run a report and determine that.
So it'd be between 2 to 3%. It's about what our raise
And we
is,
gave it, yeah, that's where I'm coming at.
especially by the time you take out Social Security, retirement, and withholding.
Okay.
Now, so again, what this represents is on your categories, we're slipping on our matrix. We're not slipping in the less than 10 years. Everybody's going to have to pay 100% of that. The 10 to 14, we're reducing the employee's contribution from 75% to approximately 50%. The 15 to 19 years, we're reducing the employee's contribution from 55 to 37. The 20 to 24 from 40 to 27, and the plus 25 from 20 to 13. Now, the one thing that the caveat in here is we've said that those folks, we grandfathered folks before. And so if the grandfathered folks are paying less, or paying more than the 13%, then they're liable to find themselves back into this particular plan. Because we've kind of said you're either, you're wherever, if you've got more than 25 years of service,
You get the better benefit.
we're not going to treat somebody else
Right.
any
Better than we do you.
any better than you're being treated.
And current, of course, that grandfather group is the group at the very bottom. You see the census for it is 14, so that number has gone down significantly.
It dwindles every
Yes, sir.
year.
Every year. Every year.
So just be sure you understand that I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that those percentages had changed and that there wasn't any lack of knowledge on that.
So, again, if there are no further questions?
We do not have a motion or a second at this time.
I would move approval of the pre-65 retiree medical matrix.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And then finally, we have our very last group. These are our, what we call our post-65 retirees, and those retirees who, we do actually cover retirees here who are younger than 65 if they have a disability and are on Medicare because of the disability. So with this group, again, the rate increases, you'll see monthly rate increases, you'll see in the far left column in yellow. Just so that the court knows, we subsidize about 40% of the costs for this group. And with this group, what's important to know is that Medicare is the primary payer. And retirees who participate in this program have to have Medicare's Part A and B when they leave county service, and we make sure that they do. We hound them. We make sure that they do, because that's the only way they can participate on these plans. So when you're a retiree and you have this plan, and I'm talking specifically about the senior supplement plan, which is the one at the very top, then Medicare pays first, and then this plan pays secondary. And in practical terms, what that means is that retirees who are on the senior supplement plan, for the most part, have no out-of-pocket cost in addition to the premium. They clearly have the monthly premium that they're responsible for, but when they present themselves for an office visit, they show their Medicare card, they show their health care card, and then, in effect, that covers any office visit copays, that kind of thing. So you'll see again your retiree premiums under that column. Those are monthly premiums. You see what the county contributes, the employer contribution, and the rates, again, are in yellow, increases rather are in yellow. That second set of rates that you see, those are the monthly rates that retirees pay and that the county pays when they are dependents. So again, we do have retirees who are over 65, who cover spouses, who cover children. And so you see those rates with and without drug coverage. And then near the very bottom, we have our Medicare HMO Plan. You see the rates for it. And then, again, same thing, the tiers for dependents who they're covering. So if there are no questions, the rates under your retiree contribution column are the rates that we would propose effective 1/1/2012.
Move approval.
Second. You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I'm happy to announce you won't discuss this with me again until next year.
Thank you so much, Ms. Black.
Ms. Brewer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have one item for your approval this morning, and this is to approve the fiscal year 2012 Public Health Department fee schedule.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Purchasing, Mr. Noob. What?
No football jokes today.
No football jokes today.
Renee's here.
We have 4 items for your consideration this morning. The first one is bid number 2011-127, the annual contract for the various in-house urine and saliva drug and alcohol testing supplies for the Community Supervision and Corrections Department and Juvenile Services. We're requesting the approval of the primary and secondary vendors listed on your court communique based on a per unit price basis.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-136. This is the annual contract for the purchase of standard address labels. This is countywide. We're recommending the award per unit price basis to the primary and secondary vendors listed on your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is for bid number 2011-137. This is the purchase of Cisco wireless platform management replacement for information technologies. The award recommendation is to INX Inc. in the amount of $93,491.74.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our last item is for RFQ number 2011-124. This is request for qualifications for the appraisal services for transportation department. We're requesting approval to conduct negotiations for the vendors listed on the court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do. Is Renee here?
No, she left.
She left. Okay.
She knew you were going to ask.
When you hire appraisers, do you hire an appraiser that, let's say, is based in northeast Tarrant County and give him a project to work on that's in southwest Tarrant County, southeast Tarrant County? Or do you try to give them a project that's near the market that they normally work in? Do you make that attempt?
We do make that attempt, Commissioner. depending on how we structure the particular competitive instrument, sometimes they are location-specific, and sometimes they're a little more general. It's the reason we have a much broader number of people on this one here, because they do cover a much larger geographic area. And what we will do when we get ready to seek these services is we will contact each one of them and get their proposals from them so we can determine what our best value is going to be on that particular project.
I just noticed that in another world I play in, that when you have a problem with an appraiser, it's generally because of his being unfamiliar with the area that he's appraising.
Yes, sir.
I mean, sure, he can go do what he can do, but you're much better off bringing in somebody who works that area on a regular basis and is familiar with it.
Yes, I agree.
And of properties in that area.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, our attempt will be to, when we issue the statement of work, to get their pricing. That will definitely be taken into account. That will be part of the evaluation per job.
Any other questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
I do, with the City of Keller, and this is purchase asphalt, move for approval of 9K1 A and B, second, City of Keller.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
We do not have any items for the court's consideration this morning, Your Honor.
When is this JP and Constable meeting?
The public hearing is going to be next Tuesday, the 20th, at 7 p.m. in the Commissioner's courtroom.
7 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Next Tuesday.
Any other business at this time? There being none, we are adjourned. Thank you.